Today's society faces many challenges, of which one is political Islam. Religious Islam is antichrist, as it denies the deity of the Lord Jesus Christ, and political Islam is anti-liberty, as we in the Western world have known it. Australia recently voted for a new federal parliament, and this is what the Australian Muslim Times has to say concerning the election and certain political parties and politicians, and I think it's worth taking note of. Federal election, miracle win, devastating loss, and future implications. We'll look at that article. Also, the spoiler, white supremacy harnesses the fear factor. We'll look at that as well. The first is the Australian federal election. And I just want to notice a couple of things that is said here. First of all, regardless of the outcome of the Australian federal election on Saturday, 18th of May, 2019, Muslims in Australia have shown unprecedented interest in the election, as the risk of electing racist bigots in the parliament was too high. In a democracy, voting is the citizens' power to elect leaders of their choice. Abstaining from voting should not be an option. It will give politicians with an agenda of hate, and division easy access to Parliament. Hate, racist. Here it talks about former Prime Minister Tony Abbott. And I quote, "The defeat of former Prime Minister Mr. Tony Abbott in his long-held seat was a reflection on how out of touch this arrogant politician was. It is another favor to Mr. Scott Morrison that this troublemaker backbencher is out of the Parliament." End of quote. So you can see what they think of Tony Abbott. Now the spoiler. White supremacy harnesses the fear factor. The plethora of racist, white supremacist, and Islamophobic parties and candidates rolling up for the May 2019 federal election, all directing their preferences to the Liberal National Coalition, suggest a yearning amongst very vocal fringe elements for the past certainties of Australian society. Several things in there. One, racist, white supremacist, Islamophobic. All of those are somewhat, racist, I'd say. Then it goes on to say, Australia today has First Nations people in Parliament, mainly in the ALP and Greens, Muslims, even Muslim women, lots of foreign-born individuals, and many who speak English as a second language. Then it goes on to say the leader of the opposition in the Senate, which is Penny Wong, who is wrong, is an LBGT. And what do Muslims say about LGBT people? They put them to death in Islamic Sharia law nations. She's an Australian Chinese woman who refuses to tolerate racism or sexism from its exponents in the government. Then it goes on. The Senate front bench for the government is led by an ultra-right. The guy's not an ultra-right. An ultra-right Australian Belgian who speaks English with a heavy accent. Have you ever heard some of these people that would be reading the Muslim Times, being Arab and so on? Well, their accents are. Reading here, this multicultural face of Australia still reflected very poorly in the membership of Parliament, is seen as threatening the very basic values of the reactionaries who view Australia of the 1920s and 30s as the high point of civilization. And then down near the bottom, it says, the opening of the detention center on Christmas Island, which looks as though it was intended as the player in a major Fear the Refugees political campaign, was aborted by the Christchurch Mosque massacre carried out by an Australian white supremacist. However, this did not remove the fear factor from the political campaigns. The real danger of the white supremacist fanatics to the Muslim community, stimulated by this exploitation of fear, has not yet been recognized by the authorities. Now, that's just a sampling of the Australian Muslim Times. Now, I ask you the question, what political party or parties do you think most of those of the Islamic faith in the Muslim community, who do you think they voted for? Thank you for watching.